Go for it.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. We thank you all for coming, attending this major to career panel. It's hosted by the Center for Career and Experiential Education, or CCEE, that we say sometimes. I'm Phyllis Penhallow. I'm an associate teaching professor here at URI, and I do two jobs. I do academic advising and I do teaching. I also do 480, 481, which is the senior internship course where students do their capstone project. This panel is going to be recorded. And I just was going to start by asking each panelist to introduce themselves and to introduce themselves any way that they want to, and then to give us their current position title. And I'm just going to start with Steve. Steve is okay? Steven, I see Steve in there. Steve's okay.
That's fine.
All right, we're going to start with Steve on the upper left.
All right, my name is Stephen Raboyne. I graduated in 2016 undergrad and then graduate school in 2018. Right now, I have my own private practice, so I own my own office and I work independently. And it says LMFT next to my name because I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, which is the grad program that I graduated from at URI.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to go to the right there, Jackie.
Hi, my name is Jackie Ferrer. I'm the program director for Trudeau Early Intervention, and I graduated in 2009 from Human Development and Family Studies.
Thank you so much. And then I'm going to go on my screen. The next is Megan.
My name's Megan. I graduated this year and I'm finishing up the developmental science program so I defended my thesis last week.
Yay!
Sorry, loud noise over there. And I'll be starting a job as a service coordinator and case manager in 2 weeks at One Sky Community Services.
Where's that going to be, Megan?
It's in Portsmouth, New Hampshire at One Sky Community Services.
What is that, a comprehensive service program?
Yes, for people in the community with developmental disabilities and acquired brain injuries.
Okay, excellent. All right. And then Jaylene.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jaylene. I graduated in 2021 with the HDF major, and I currently work for Providence Promise, located in downtown Providence, as the youth engagement coordinator.
And then Jaylene, can you just quickly, we just collaborated with Jaylene. And so Jaylene, just give us a little bit of that collaboration that we did with you with our current undergrads.
Absolutely. So as part of my role for Providence Promise, I oversee a mentorship program where we pair college student mentors with our middle and high school students enrolled in Providence Promise. And we were so lucky to have some of Phyllis's students from her class completing internship hours, serving as mentors for us. So that program is actually coming to a close within the next couple of weeks, and it's been absolutely amazing, a full circle moment collaborating with Phyllis and URI in general.
Oh, it was great. And then just having Jaylene as the alumni, and I hope that we continue that program too. I'd like to welcome all the students, and we'd like to tell you that you can ask a question if you want to. You can raise your hand, or you can just put it right in the chat. And we have Kristen Souza. She's from CCE, the Center for Career and Experiential Education. She's going to be watching the chat, and she'll let us know. All right, so I was just going to start by asking each of our panelists if you can tell us your career journey. Focus after graduation, like literally May as an undergrad to what you do now. But I do want to ask you to just go back to high school, senior year, and then you're coming to URI, and just like your thought process. Were you like, yep, this is what I'm going to do, I know? Or were you like, I'm so nervous, I don't know what I'm going to do? So just tell us a little bit about that. And then, and you have about, you don't have to rush. We have plenty of time for you to talk for, 5-6 minutes if you want to. All right, so I'm going to reverse and start with Jaylene this time.
Yeah, so thinking back to senior in high school me, I was completely unsure of what I was going to pursue at URI. All I knew was I got into the talent development program, had some friends attending there, and I was super excited. The first year I declared a psychology major, which is not too far off from human development and family science, but I decided later on that I wanted to go in a more general direction. I felt that the HDF major gave me a little bit more options to explore after graduation, so I ended up pursuing that instead. And yeah, I'm a first generation college student, so I just was kind of figuring it out as I went. through the program, but it definitely prepared me for what my trajectory has been since graduating. So after graduating, I started a job as an education services coordinator at Rhode Island PBS. Not sure if you guys all know of PBS Kids, but they actually have an education department. So that was a pretty cool experience right out of graduating URI. And so later on, I kept exploring my options, and I found an internship with Lifespan. And there I was working as a human resources type of intern, where I was pairing, services like, I'm sorry, I'm blinking out. It's like pairing families that are low income with resources like rental assistance and clothing drives and things of that nature. And I found a love for that, working within the community, especially with low income folks, and then also tying in education. And then that eventually led me to Providence Promise, that does allow me to kind of dabble in both.
Okay.
So that's
And
a
then-
little bit about that.
All right, and then just quickly, Jaylee, when you found HDF, like just give us a time, like, did you say, okay, I know this is it? Like, was there a moment when you said, I'm in the right spot, I'm in the right major?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the first year of taking HDF courses, I went through Lifespan Development 1 and 2, and then I eventually took the child development classes. And once I was in the child development classes, some of them required fieldwork hours, and I was able to work at the CDC at the Providence campus.
Yes.
And that hands-on experience really showed me, I think it kind of became a ripple effect after that, because I noticed that I loved working with children, maybe not necessarily the younger kids, but I knew that I was on the in the right direction. So that's the moment that really solidified that I was in the right major for me.
Okay, thank you so much, Jaylene. Okay, Megan.
So, leaving high school, I shared the feeling that Jolene did. I feel like a lot of us did in HDF, where I know a lot of people who started out psych. And then I realized that HDF, again, provided a lot of broader options for what work to go into afterward. And knowing that I wanted to go into grad school afterward, I felt like HDF could give me a wider option as opposed to just going psych and then more psych. Also, one of the main attractive parts of HDF for me was all the field work. So all the practicum hours, the internships. The internships actually, like that 480 internship that you do right at the end, that was really what got me into my job that I'll be starting in a couple weeks, because I worked at Pace East Providence for a while, which is an adult day center, and it's also an insurance company. It connects people with a lot of services in the community, and that's kind of when I realized that that is kind of what I wanted to be doing.
Okay.
So yeah, going straight into a master's program is definitely, it's something that is good for the financial aspect of things. And also I feel better prepared to go into like more of an academic setting. So I may come back in a few years.
Did you think about going right, like it's 4 years, you get to graduate, you can think about ending school, but you're like, oh no, I want to go back. Did you have any doubts about going right back to school, or that you definitely knew you want to go right to graduate school?
I did have a couple doubts, but actually I took a lot of AP classes in high school, so I made the decision when I realized that I would be graduating a year early. So I graduated my undergrad in 3 years, and so I realized that I could either take a bunch of filler elective classes and pay for them, and that wouldn't be very smart. Or I could just sign up for the ABM program, so I could just add another year on, and I could do the master's and undergrad in 4 years.
Okay, nice.
But yeah, so there wasn't a whole lot of thought that went into that, but here we are.
Right. Okay, Jackie.
Hi, so, sorry about that.
That's okay.
There's an intercom here, so might go off in the middle of this. So when I graduated high school, I didn't know necessarily 100% what I wanted to do. I started a major in occupational therapy, not at URI. So I went to school in Springfield, Massachusetts, and shortly learned like that wasn't what I wanted to do. I did eventually come back to Rhode Island and went to URI. When I started there and went into the HDF program, I knew I wanted to work with children, birth to 3. but I didn't know how that was going to pan out because I didn't want to be in a classroom, but I wanted to work with both children and adults. So after going through my internship placement that I actually had here at Trudeau in 2009, I learned, okay, I want to be in early intervention. I want to support kids with disabilities, birth to 3, and not be in a classroom. Quickly learned that through my placement, there was no positions for early intervention. We have different levels, and there's a service coordinator 1 and a service coordinator 2, and there was no open positions at that time. But they had said if you had your early childhood teaching certification,
Okay.
you could come on as a level 2. And so I decided at that moment I'm going back to school, get my early childhood teaching certification. And in the meantime, I worked as a nanny, and I was the infant toddler teacher at the child development center we had here. At that time, it was Crayons. And then when I graduated, I came back to work as a service coordinator level 2 for a couple of years. And then I went back over to the early childhood center, Crayons, and was the program director for about 4 years, when an opportunity opened to come back over to early intervention where I really wanted to be the program director here. So now I oversee the program here. And in the meantime, there have been different opportunities for staff when you graduate with an HDF degree. There's some different tracks now that you're able to go so that you could come into the early intervention field.
Yeah, thank you. I want to just give a shout out for kind of what Jackie's telling you. So we have an early childhood certificate now at URI that we've been working on for a while. So it's 5 courses and working in an internship with EI, and then you could leave as an undergrad with a certificate and get into that level 2, which Jackie had to kind of do a different way. So because of students like Jackie, we knew we had to open the door to this for our students. So now if you're interested in early intervention, you can come see me, an academic advisor, see Professor Cassie McGregor if you want to, and we could talk to you about the EI certificate, working with birth through 3. All right, thanks, Jackie. And then Steve.
Yeah, so my path may have started a little bit farther away from HDF. So coming out of high school, I was sure that I was going to be in marketing. So I'd taken kind of career center courses in marketing, got accepted to URI in the business school for marketing, and thought that's where I wanted to be. But quickly found out that it was not what I had thought it was. It was a lot more business, a lot more math, not as much connecting with individuals and working with people one-on-one as I thought it was going to be. So I didn't then switch to HDF. I switched to communication studies, and it was closer to what I wanted, more of understanding how to connect with others and bring people together, but it still didn't have that personal touch that I felt like I would thrive in, and then finally found HDF. So I think it's changed since I've gone there, but I did have a leadership studies minor, which was under HDF when I originally went there. Now I think it's funny, it's back in the business school, I believe.
It's moving to business, yeah.
Right. So so it would have been different, but that was really important for me to realize where I wanted to be, which was in HDF. And so I started pretty late. I would say maybe the end of my sophomore year, really decided to commit to HDF. So I did have to take a few summer classes each semester as I continued to graduate on time. But I eventually went to the CDC, the preschool on campus, and that was where I just kind of got hooked. But again, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do post-grad, kind of until my last year, where I felt like marriage and family therapy was a track that I knew about. I was thinking that I wanted to go more in a one-on-one therapeutic type setting. And so kind of looked around at different programs at URI, outside of URI, and found that marriage and family therapy fit the best with kind of my values and what I thought I wanted to do. And so I think one thing to take away from my journey is that, one, it took me a little bit longer to get there. And I think, two, from just talking to now HDF students, but also my experience, is that there's seemingly a lot of pressure to figure it out early, but it really doesn't need to be. And again, I think what's great about HDF is it's so broad. But that also can be overwhelming. I know I talk to a lot of students that are like, yeah, I can do whatever I want, but I can do whatever I want. And that's kind of scary. So going into the grad program, it was a decision I made because I felt if I had left undergrad and started working, I felt like I would start making money and I wouldn't go back to grad school. I just don't think I would be able to commit to that. So I was happy that I did it all kind of back to back. The one thing about the marriage, yeah, you were gonna say something?
I was gonna say you went straight through and you were happy you did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very happy with it. And the MFT program at URI specifically goes through the summers as well. So it's a 3-year program, but it's in 2 years, which I liked as well because I didn't want to keep going to school. The one thing about, I believe, most therapy or counseling type programs that you'll go to, you need to have a certain amount of supervised hours after you graduate. So there's kind of another kicker of 2 years that after I graduated from grad school that you need to be working under a licensed and supervised clinician, and then you can open up your own private practice or see clients independently. So after that extended period of time, I did start seeing clients independently. I now have my own office. And so I'm happy where I am for sure. I made the right decision, but it definitely was not where I thought I was going to start when I came out of high school.
And Steve, you're the only one on the panel that is self-employed, but so before I get to the next question, can you just say something about being self-employed?
There's a lot to it. I think a lot of people come out of my program wanting to do private practice, wanting to work for yourself, you can make your own hours. My wife and I actually just had a daughter, 6 months ago. So private practice fits so well for us because I don't have to be at work all the time. I can be home. But the one thing that I would say is that you're running your own business, right? Like being self-employed, I thought there wouldn't be as much into it, but with taxes, buying your own health insurance, there's just a lot of things you have to make sure you're on top of, whether you're an LLC or you're, just a sole proprietor. Like there's just a lot of different business stuff that you need to know. So sometimes that can be overwhelming, along with you really need to stay kind of motivated and to work, especially like we have our daughter now, and some days I'd rather just not schedule clients, but it adds up quickly. Whereas I think more of a typical agency job, it kind of keeps you a little bit more dedicated to that. So it has its positives. I love it. I would never change my situation, but it is challenging in different ways than I thought it would be when I started.
Okay, all right, thank you. Steve touched on this a little bit, so I'm just going to go back and ask everyone. A lot of times our students, our undergrads, they feel like anxious, so they're just not sure what they want to do. So what would be your advice? So say students are like here, it's really wide, and then through school, we want them to kind of narrow. Could you give them a question to ask themselves, or what advice would you give to help students kind of narrow, like a population or an age group, or and they don't have to do it like in one day. They have time. So I'm going to go to Jaylene, and can you tell us what's your advice for undergrads that are like, I know I want to work with people, but I just don't really know exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I was in those shoes, and I think one thing that really helped me that I would share and advise other students in that position to do is to pursue different jobs, internships, or experiences after college that align with at least one of your interests. The job that you find right after graduating doesn't need to be your dream job. As long as it fits, if you know you want to work with people and the job entails working with people and connecting them to resources or what have you, try that out. You don't have to settle on a career right after graduating. This is the time for you to explore. You have plenty of time. So as you're exploring and gaining different experiences, you can start to pick out, what did I like from this job and how does it compare to the next job that I had or the previous one? And I think that will help you form your narrative and what you look for that's all encompassing in your, dream career or correct trajectory. I would say that my experiences still haven't led me exactly to the title that I would like to pursue indefinitely, but it has brought me a lot closer. My experiences has actually opened my horizons to now knowing that I want to work with the college population. And so I'm at Providence College getting my master's in higher ed. So even if it doesn't land you, in the next 2 or 3 years after graduating, the exact job that you can see yourself settling in, you will find your next steps. And I think that's as long as you keep chugging along, there's no room for failure if you don't quit. So
Awesome. Excellent. All right, Megan, can you say anything about focusing on what you want to do?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like that's one of the things that HDF sets you up really well for, because to fulfill your curriculum sheet, you need multiple practicum experiences from multiple age groups, which I wasn't super happy about when I was having to do the practicum experience, because I came into college knowing that I only wanted to work with older adults. And I was kind of like, why are you making me do like 3 to 5-year-old stuff if I'm only interested in older adults? But so I ended up working at the CDC for one of my practicum classes, and it was like the best experience. I ended up working there for a semester or two, and that was a really good experience that I wouldn't have had if I didn't have to have multiple practicum experiences. Um, but yeah, so now I feel like I came in with the confidence that I could work with older adult populations because I'd worked in nursing homes before, but I really didn't have much confidence when it came to younger children and even elementary, middle school children. So that was able to give me more confidence with a variety of age groups. So
Okay.
that's definitely going to help me in my job.
All right, thank you. Jackie?
So I would have to agree with Jaylene and looking at different internship opportunities, even interviewing for different positions that you may not know much about, but you can learn a lot more about those positions. So researching some different areas. So if you're interested in early childhood, something I didn't know initially was that I didn't want to work in a classroom and be in a classroom all the time. But through my internship and through the teaching certification program, you learn a lot of what goes on in those programs. And then I went on to sub as well. And that kind of said, no, that's not what I want to do. But then I was able to do practicum experiences and other things that got me where I am today. And I'd also say I don't know that this is my end and where I want to be for the future focus. So I continue to look at different opportunities to where I want to go next. And it might be something completely different than EI, but I don't think that you always know what you want to do, and you might not even know for the rest of your career.
Okay, awesome.
For me, I think, I mean, it was kind of what I did throughout my career in college and post-grad was first just looking at like, what are your interests and what are you good at? I think a lot of times as college students, we look at, okay, these are the, 15 different degrees I can do, or these are the jobs I can do after college. And you get so stuck of like, I don't know if I'd like that. I don't know if I'd like that. And then it kind of creates a lot of anxiety, obviously. So for me, like one thing I knew is like I'm interested in the way that people work. I think people are just interesting, right? And I knew that I'm good with conflict. I know I can handle conflict. I know I can be in the room and be empathetic and I can listen and I want to support people in that way. So like I said, when I came into marketing, I thought it was a lot of, connecting with people, coming up with plans together, and realized it really lacked what I thought I was looking for. And then, like I said, communication studies as well. So I think just knowing what I was interested in and then trying to find a major that worked for me. Of course, all the experiences you have throughout URI, I say like take them, they talk about the CDC. Like I never imagined myself working at a preschool throughout my time in college. And I ended up actually working there 2 years undergrad. And then I continued working at the CDC in graduate school. And I knew I loved that. So I think being open to new experiences, but don't try to put yourself in a box of like, this is what I need to do. And I know it's easier said than done, but also looking at it, even if you go to grad school, you don't come out of grad school, most of your schooling right now, maybe you're done at 22, you have about 40 years of your life to figure out what's next, right? So a lot of times we think that these 4 years or these 6 years are going to determine the rest of their lives, but a lot of times things can change, right? So I think no matter where you come out the end, whether you go to grad school, whether you do not, like this degree is always going to help you get to that next step. Not trying to see it as, oh no, I have to commit, the next 6 years of my life, what do I do? I think 6 years of your working life is actually kind of small when you take a step back and look at how many years you'll potentially be working. So not trying to put so much pressure on yourself, kind of take yourself out of it, I think is really helpful.
All right, you guys given amazing advice. We did not plan this. They all are just giving you guys. It's awesome. They all could be, all 4 of you could be academic advisors with the advice that you're giving. All right. So this question is, So some students when they're so it seems like freshman, sophomore, like, oh, this is going to take so long. College takes forever. Then I notice like come junior year, like second semester, junior year, a lot of students like, oh no, this is going too fast. Senior year is coming. So what are some benefits of graduating? Like once you graduate, and because instead of like being afraid of what to do next, was there like a great feeling about graduating? Like was it really nice? Did you hit that point? Like, I'm glad I'm graduating. It's time to graduate. And even if you had fears, you knew that this was time to do something else. So what advice for students that are thinking, oh no, it's coming up, I'd rather stay in school? Jaylene.
Yeah, this is interesting because I went into college not knowing what to expect, and then I was ready to graduate college exactly that, not knowing what to expect. But I think there's beauty in the unexpected, and as long as you're willing to take some risks outside of your the routine that you got to know as being a college student, whether you're a full-time college student and working or full-time and involved in extracurriculars, life after graduation is a little bit different, but it's really exciting to be able to enter the workforce, to establish a new routine. And so even if you're a little bit afraid, I would say just go for it. And a lot of really cool experiences will come from that. And also, everyone says you make the greatest friends in college. In my experience, you also make really good connections and friendships within the work field after graduating. So there's lots to look forward to. And I'm always happy to connect if anyone has some questions about graduating soon.
Excellent. Good advice. And then Megan, can you tell us a little bit, since you're in graduate school, how about give them a difference between being an undergrad, the undergrad workload and the graduate workload?
Yeah, definitely. So, something really quick on that last point is I feel like that played into why I stayed here, because it's just that moment of like, I know I can do this well, so I should just stay. But
Okay.
that's why I applied to the PhD program. But then after the last few weeks with my thesis, I decided let's not do that right away. But yeah, so the difference in workload between undergrad and grad school, I feel like definitely you don't get like, this is developmental science particularly, but you don't really get tests and quizzes in grad school because they're not looking for you to memorize information and be able to like spurt it back. They are more, at least thesis-based programs are more looking for, can you do this and understand why you did it and explain to other people how and why you did it. So that was the really interesting part about defending my thesis, was like, it was just being in a room full of professors and being the expert on your topic, and they're asking you questions about it, hoping that you can prove that you know why you did the things you did. And that was a really interesting part of it. I would say the workload, there's less busy work, so there's less physical assignments to do, but the assignments that you do have are significantly more difficult, just in the way that it's definitely all on you. Like, it's more self-paced, it's more based on participation. So like, you won't get any of those classes where you can just sit in the background and not get noticed. It's usually like, I've had some 4-person classes, some 6-person classes where it's very much seminar style, like, you're gonna talk and you're gonna talk for quite a while. So
Yeah, it's hard to slip out when there's like 5 of you in the room.
oh yeah, definitely. And it will be noticed if you're not there. So yeah, so I feel like it's much more on you to take charge of your own academic experience, but I enjoyed that. So that was a good thing for me.
Jackie?
So I think one of the things like that I was excited about when I was graduating is to go on to learn what else is out there, so that my learning continued then and still continues. So I like that I'm able now to have opportunities to focus on different areas that I may not have focused on in college. So a specific towards a specific realm or a specific developmental delay that we're learning about. I like to look at what's in my program and what's a learning opportunity to grow my own experience, but then also to coach my staff on what's coming, what's up and coming. We do that frequently and attend different seminars on different things that are happening. We sometimes get children in our program that we have no idea anything about their diagnosis, and then we start researching, and that's still our learning curve, which is really nice to still see that happening. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the transition from college can be really scary. You know, you don't necessarily have a Phyllis to guide you of where to go and what to do. But I think for those who may be a little bit nervous about this step, I think you should see it as an opportunity to actually experience, you know, what you've been trying to plan the last 4 or 2 years. Is like you need to know if you actually want to do this, right? And that's why I went into the MFT program that I did, because it was a nice balance of continued learning that I felt like I needed, but also that if you want to be a therapist, you can't really practice, right? Which is probably a good thing, that you can't just practice on people. But the MFT program that I went into, it was very experiential learning. So in my second semester there, I would see clients, but I would have a supervisor behind a glass mirror or a one-way mirror so that the clients can't see them, but they can see me, right? And there was a phone that they would call in and say like, hey, maybe you should go this direction or something like that. So it felt like a really good balance of, you're going to continue to learn and we're going to support you, but also at some point you have to start doing what you want to do. And I think that's when you'll really know, is this what I want to do? Is this what I want to continue to be doing? Or do I want to switch things up, right? I want to go in a different direction, because a lot of times you may say like, this is like working with couples is something I thought going into the program, like I absolutely wanted to do, until you get couples and you realize like how stressful and how difficult that can be. So I've learned throughout my experience that, okay, I have to balance maybe only a few couples on my caseload rather than thinking like couples is what I wanted to focus on. So
Yeah.
I don't think you learn things like that until you actually experience it. So it is nerve-wracking. You're out on your own, you're independent, but I also think it should be very exciting that you finally get to experience something that you've been planning for quite a while.
All right, and then I want you if you could think back to college, the undergrad, and was there something that you didn't do that you wish that you did? And maybe you couldn't because of money or because of time, but you know, if there was there something that you wish you just kind of did in those 4 years? Because now that you're working full time, you know, there's other obstacles. So can you think of anything that you wish you had done in as an undergrad? And we'll start with Steve just to shake it up a bit.
That's a very good question. I mean, there's probably quite a few things I wish I would have done. I think for me, it would have been realizing the intention behind like the assignments, right? I was a very much like, I need to check this off my box, right? Like there's an assignment that I have to do, let's check it off, onto the next one. And obviously you have to be that somewhat in college because you have to get things done. But the great thing, especially as you go further in your career, is I think you'll see that you want to learn more and you need that information to help you in your career. So I think just being more intentional with what classes am I taking and what do I really want to get from these classes, rather than feeling like, you know, this is a requirement that I need to do to graduate. It may still be a requirement you need to graduate, but trying to figure out how can this benefit me so I can take it further with me as I go along. I mean, I think of even classes like I had to take family finance, which was kind of a nightmare for me, and I kind of just skipped through it. But now, as someone who's self-employed and I have my own business and my own family, I really wish I would have focused more in family finance and not just checked it off. So I think even those classes you may not be excited about, you don't want to get up to go to Monday, 8 a.m., just trying to figure out how could this benefit you in the long run, and then trying to be more intentional with it is something I would have taken going forward.
Okay. Are you willing to tell us your baby's name?
Yeah, Ariana.
Oh, cute, cute, cute. 6 months, you said?
6 months, yeah. It's a great age.
Cute, cute. All right, Jackie.
So I would have to say that I would have loved to have been able to work less and focus more on some of my schoolwork then, similar to Steven. So then not just checking off that box, but know, oh, okay, what's the full intention of what I'm doing right now? And I may have been able to find my focus sooner than going back right then. And maybe at this time I would have finished my graduate program that I had started. But I think looking at really what you're learning at that time is key. And I wish I lived on campus for the first few years. I didn't. I commuted, which was a different experience because I know that some people built some really great relationships, and I'm continue to be friends now and through the field we see each other all the time, the relationships that I built after the fact. So,
Yeah, we kind of see it with the transfer students because they're not really freshmen, so they don't want to do like, icebreaker games and those freshman things. You know what I mean? They're more mature, but there's not really a great place, and it's not just URI, but a transfer student is kind of or someone not living on campus. Sometimes they don't get those experiences. Megan, undergrad at something you wish you did?
I would agree with Jackie. I do wish I would have worked less or had the opportunity to work less. Because I had a full-time job and then I was a full-time student, and same with grad school where I had a full-time job and an assistantship. So that kind of it gets in the way of having life outside of school because you make your years go by very, very quickly,
Yes.
with not a whole lot of free time. But you do what you have to do. So I don't necessarily regret that completely because a lot of the friends I do have now, I did meet at work. So even though I might not have made a lot of relationships in school, I did have people at work that I could depend on.
Yeah, it's good.
Also going abroad was a big thing too, because I never went abroad, another financial thing. I couldn't really
Yeah.
afford to go abroad. And a lot of our jobs now, a lot of HDF's focus is diversity, equity, inclusion issues. And I feel like getting that experience living in another country with another culture would have been beneficial for me.
Okay. No, I hear you. And I just want to put a shout out, HDF students, our major allows you to go away, and you can talk to a counselor about that, whether often you just pay the regular tuition that you would regularly pay, you just go somewhere else in certain programs. And a good time to go would be sophomore year, second semester, junior year, first or second semester, and we've even had seniors go first semester. So it's something that it could be doable if you're interested. It would be worth talking to someone for study abroad. Okay, Jaylene.
Yeah, I think I can really relate to all the sentiments shared. I worked a lot and I wish that I was able to get more involved in the campus intramural sports or like campus clubs. There's really cool stuff on campus and I didn't really take part. So looking back, that's something that I wish I had more time to do.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so our major is, I'm making it very simple, but I can say it's the helping profession. Do we have a thumbs up on our panelists? We can kind of say our profession is the helping profession. Yes, yes. Okay. So I want you to give us your top two communicating skills with people. What have you learned over the years when you're trying to get people to talk or to share with you or to make a connection with people? If you had to just say, how about the top two or three things that you have learned about people? I know one thing for me that I learned is people do like to talk about themselves. Not everybody, but in general, I feel like you can get people to open up about themselves if you're really interested. So that's one thing I learned over the years. So could you give us your top two or three things, communication skills, working with people in this helping field? And all right, why don't we start with Jackie? We'll switch it up a little bit.
So my top one would just be sitting back and listening and really observing what people are saying and what their whole point of why they're talking to you, and then reflecting back to them. You don't want to, what I'm doing now is I don't want to give the answers. I really want them to reflect on what's going on and not be opinionated. In my field, we can be very opinionated and frustrated because we're looking at families and what they're doing with their own child and why aren't they doing it this way. But you need to take in everything that's happening in their own environment, and you might have your own cultural perspective, and their culture is going to be very different than what you may see. And we see that very frequently, the diversity in the cultures, and we need to make sure that we're not pushing our opinion onto the families.
Okay, good. Megan?
I definitely agree with that. So a lot of the like active listening skills that you learn. So like eye contact, making sure you like repeat some things back to them to make sure they feel heard. Making sure that you're not just waiting for your turn to speak again and you're actually like actively there with them. Another thing is like knowing, I'm not sure if this is super clear, but knowing when not to connect someone's situation to your own struggles.
Good point.
So like a lot of the time when another person is telling you about how horrible things are going in their class or at work or something, the intuition is to just say, oh, I experienced that too. Like, this is how I dealt with it. This is how I got through it. Where a lot of times you might mean it as empathetic, and a lot of the times it is empathetic, but sometimes people just want to say their piece and not necessarily get someone else's struggle just parroted back to them. They just want to own that for a little bit, and that's okay.
All right, Jaylene.
Yeah, I would say if you're planning to work within a diverse community, cultural competence is really important, and the way you establish that or grow in within your cultural competency is to understand that you don't know everything and being comfortable asking questions. When you're working with families, if you don't necessarily understand their point of view or where they're coming from, don't be afraid to just ask them to elaborate on their feelings or, you know, their thoughts on a particular situation. So just being open to that feedback and open to understanding their perspective would be really helpful in communicating with diverse communities.
Okay, Stephen.
I think the biggest thing I learned in grad school, they told us this statistic, and I can't remember specifically what it was, but they said about like 70% of clients are successful based off of whether or not they like their therapist. And so
Wow.
that really stuck with me. And what the point of that statistic was is that sometimes you have to just kind of put your books and your learning aside and just be a person, right? I think a lot of times when you're connecting with people, the last thing they want to hear is you kind of feeling like a script or you're reading off of a book of, you know, whatever you've learned, and you just need to be a person. You just need to relate to them. And I think after I had completed grad school, I went into home-based therapy through an agency. So I'd be going into homes in Providence, and especially being in someone else's home, right? You kind of have to just put all of your, you know, beliefs or thoughts aside. You just have to be open to, like Julian was saying, their culture. And you know, you can't never generalizing a culture. I think everyone's culture is different. It doesn't just be, you know, where you're from or your ethnicity. Culture is how you grew up, what you believe. And I think just being open to that is so important. But then again, being a person, you know, not trying to read off of a script or say exactly the right thing at the right moment. Sometimes just being there and having, you know, a good vibe about you is exactly what that person needs at the moment, rather than saying, you know, oh, I'm so sorry, that's how you feel, or something that you feel like you need to say. And then the last thing is it just listening to listen, not listening to respond. Something I tell a lot of couples, but as a therapist, right? I mean, obviously I'm listening to respond to what you're going to say. But a lot of times I tell myself that so I can listen, and then I can take a second and think about what you said. And a lot of times I think my clients appreciate that rather than me knowing exactly what to say right away. You know, I think a lot of times if I'm actually listening to them, it's going to take me a second to process it rather than me just spitting out, you know, the next kind of anxiety technique to manage what they're going through. So I think those are some really important things I've learned throughout my experiences.
Okay. So Kristen, I have one more question for them. It's 4:44. Should I just ask this last question of the panel, or do you want me to see if there's anything from the chat?
Go for it. I'm not seeing anything so far.
Okay. So so sometimes the students, I think it's a cultural thing, and you could agree or not, or I just feel like messing up is like a big deal, or people think like, oh, like it's over, or you messed up, or it's just it's a problem. So like mistakes, I know me personally, like mistakes are really valuable. So can you just tell us a time when like you messed up at work or you did something wrong and that you lived through it and you survived and you were able to carry on, even if you you made a mistake or you did something wrong or you said the wrong thing. I remember when I was doing parenting classes, I would like insult a parent. I totally did not mean to, but you know, I discovered that through conversation or whatever, I could make up for a mistake. So can you give some advice to our students that you don't have to do everything perfect, and when you mess up, there's still hope. There's things you can do. So can you tell us about a time that maybe I don't, you know what I mean? It is something you did something not the right way, or conflict or something like that. All right, Megan, I'm gonna start with you and then we'll go to Jaylene.
Yeah, so this is pretty recently actually. It is, so I work for the Cyber Seniors program I have for my entire time here at URI. And we just connect older adults. We give them iPads and we connect them with student mentors who teach them how to use them. And I now deal with the data side of things. So I collect data through pre-surveys, post-surveys, all that kind of stuff. And I use RedCap to put it's a statistical analysis site software. And I use that to put the raw data into, and then that spits it out into like a SPSS file, which is another statistical software. And so something that happened with that was I realized after inputting almost 500 people's data that all of the equations were calculating incorrectly. So, and there was no way to retroactively go and fix that. So I had to fix all the equations and then just start over again, which I decided to try to do on my own, which was, it happened, but definitely in situations like that, it's never a bad thing to go to your supervisor and tell them what has happened, because they can always give you help with things like that. And things like that happen. They do. They just do. And it's not fun, but it's always better to let someone know before it becomes an issue. So
Yeah,
that would
that'd
be
be
my
good.
advice.
Sounds good. Okay, Jaylene.
Yeah, so for context, Providence Promise, the organization I work for, is pretty new. We're a small team of 7, and the organization has been around for about 6 years. So establishing our reputation in the community and building trust with the families enrolled in the program is super crucial at this time. And so when I started the role, I was a very eager beaver, and I really wanted to help as much as I could with connecting students to resources and getting them prepared for college. There was a particular situation where I overpromised how much I could help a student, and that actually backfired because I wasn't able to deliver. I didn't consult with my supervisor to make sure that, I could promise what I was promising. And so the parent came back very upset, and that, caused a lack of trust between that family and our organization because of, me overpromising. So I think in a situation like that, it was definitely a learning lesson. It's important to recognize our faults and, just to be open and clear. Like, my intention wasn't that, but I realized that my actions created this inconvenience for you. Owning up to that and taking responsibility and trying to rectify the situation for future circumstances that are similar is really what's important. And I think too, another thing that's helpful is having a good work culture. So you have supervisors and colleagues that can recognize what your intentions could have been, or, that you have genuine care for the role that you do. It makes it easier to stumble and pick yourself back up and, with put your best foot forward.
Awesome. All right. Steve.
Yeah, one of my most recent mistakes, I mean, I have many therapy sessions a day, so I guess there's many opportunities for me to say the wrong thing or not completely get what my clients are saying. But recently I had a couple, and they both are diagnosed with ADHD, and I work a lot with ADHD as it's so, common. So what I was trying to do is slow these clients down, just slow them down. In this male was just talking really fast. I was trying to slow him down. I kept saying slow down, and then he got really upset, and he's like, "I'm just trying to talk. Can you just let me talk?" Right. So again, that's just another opportunity for me to slow things down and say, like, sometimes you just need to let them be them, and I'll clean up the pieces afterwards, rather than kind of really forcing them to respond a certain way, which is really hard because I know I can see from the outside. It's like, I want your partner to hear you, so I want to slow you down so they can understand you and so I can understand you. But at the end of the day, sometimes I have to just take a step back, let them be who they are, and then talk about it after. So that's one recent mistake that I made. Another one is I've been comfortable in this role as a private practitioner for a while. But recently, and I'm going to blame it on having dad brain, I've just not put people in my schedule when I'm supposed to have them in my schedule. And I know it's there, luckily. I've never missed an appointment with a client, but I'll just go in my schedule and say, oh my gosh, I know I have 6 sessions Thursday and I only got 4 here.
Yeah.
But another one of those things where I just have to make sure that I keep up with it. And I obviously reach out to clients and say, hey, I'm sorry, I must not put in last session. Like, I just want to confirm this is our time. And I hate that because I feel like it comes off very unprofessional, and I have extreme anxiety every time I send that message. But again, they get it. Most people get it. They're busy too. I have clients who don't show up to sessions because they forgot that it was in their calendar. So I think just reminding yourself as well that like, you can't hold yourself to this extreme standard. It's going to happen. But again, just responding to it as soon as you can.
Awesome. All right, Jackie?
So I'd have to say one of the most recent things is we have a significant wait list in early intervention right now. And I'm working to assign all the cases as they come in. And I have a system in place that I thought was working really well in data, and realized one day when I went to go run a report, I'm like, why isn't this child assigned to anybody? I know I assigned that to so-and-so, and went back in my emails and I never assigned it. And I reached out to that coordinator. I was like, hey, I really made a mistake and we need to get this child in and evaluate it as quick as possible. I'll step in and help out where I can, but it is my fault. And I think the biggest thing is owning up to your mistakes, because everyone else around you will appreciate that more, because we all make mistakes. And they're going to come to you with mistakes. And I've seen that they've come to me and said, hey, this kid was due for this and I didn't do it yet. I'm sorry. And what can we do about it? And we work through those things. And one other thing was, when I first took over this position, I had a new vice president in charge of my program, and we were working to rectify some stuff. And he had made some suggestions, and being in the new position, I said, okay, yep, I'll follow through with that. It really got the morale of my program down, because it was data driven, and that's all they wanted to know was the numbers and numbers and numbers. And it wasn't about the people and the quality of work that we were doing. I can say now, 8 years later, very recently, he said to me, I'll never do that again, because I know what it did to your program. And at that point, I should have spoken up back then and said, don't do this, because it's not going to be a good thing.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you so much. That was good to hear about those, and that you could recover, and that there's hope, and that you probably don't repeat the same, the problem if you keep repeating the same mistake, it seems like everyone's learning from it. So it's 4:53. I'm just so proud of you four. You're all grown up and mature, and you just sound like you're doing awesome. And I'm so grateful for the people that are benefiting from all your work out there. And we know you're all busy, and we appreciate you taking the time out to talk to some undergrads. So if anything else out there, Kristen, any questions? I'm not sure anyone's going to raise their hand. We should have told undergrads they should raise their hand in a big Zoom as a piece of advice, but I'm not sure if any students have any questions.
No, just a comment about how great your answers are.
Yeah, aren't they fabulous? They're awesome. And
They
this is
are.
recorded, right? So we could
They are.
okay.
Any last minute
Steve,
questions, friends?
anyone? Steve, Jackie, Megan, Jaylene, thank you so much. So you want to say something?
Yeah, the last thing I was gonna say is just advice is networking and connect with everyone in your classes, anyone you see here today. Like I know if you send me an email, I will help any way that I can, because that's the great thing about HDF is it's a very close-knit community, and it always has been. I mean, I still keep in touch with professors that I've worked there before, and like I said, I kept in touch with the CDC, and now I'm doing some parenting workshops for them. So really build those connections. And like I said, if you see any of our names, I don't want to speak for the others, but if you see our names, like reach out, email us, whatever you need, because I think people who have been there before want to help, especially in this HDF field.
Awesome. Thank you. And Kristen or I can get you emails for everyone. Jackie, did you want to say anything before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, reach out, same thing with any questions. We offer internship opportunities. They've been limited over the last few years, but we are doing more, and I've continued to network with URI and spoken at some different classes. And we currently have an HDF student. I don't know that we're getting one this summer, but we do currently have one. And we have had about, I'd say 4 or 5 right now that are employees and have been with us for over 10 to 12 years. So
Okay. Megan, anything before we go?
Not particularly. I just wanted to say, because Gregory asked if all of us have LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure all of us do. So we'll be pretty easy to find on there.
Yeah, awesome. And then Jaylene?
Yeah, no, thank you all for allowing the platform to share about my experiences. I hope it was beneficial to you all, and feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to be a resource.
All right. Kristen, those chats, did you want to say a few of those? Some of them are so nice.
I have them when I record. Just wanted to say that I'll make sure that Phyllis has your emails, panelists, just because I'll put her on the email for my thank you. And then feel free to share their contact. It sounds like they're willing with your students, but I do want to say if anybody doesn't get that email and they wanted to reach out to any of the panelists, please feel free to email me. I'll put it my email in the chat. Always happy to connect our students to our employers and our fellow alum.
I
Thank
just
you
wanted
so
to
much. Oh, good.
I just wanted to quickly thank you. I'm Pat Maris. For some reason, I teach HDF 340 and it won't let me change my name
I
on
know.
the
I was
Zoom. I'm
thinking it
not
was you. I'm
sure
like, is that
why.
Pat?
I've never had that happen, but I just wanted to say thank you for including my class and a lot of my students. I'm very happy to see came today. So I really appreciate you you including us. Thank you.
Awesome.